Now to our education system, which appears to be failing. As I mentioned in my editorial, Australian students are now twice as likely to fail than to excel in maths and English. 430,000 of the 1.3 million students who sat the tests this year are performing below expectations. Only 15% of students, roughly 200,000 of them, performed above the expected standard. Joining me to discuss this and much more is the Director of the Education Program at the Centre for Independent Studies, Fahey. Glenn, welcome to the program. What are Australia's education standards like right now, and why are they on such a concerning, and it appears downward, trend?
Look, you know we're not at a teachers' union talk fest right now because over there the talking point is to blame the test rather than fix the results. But it is undeniable that the system is on life support. Our school system has been in a constant state of decline against some measures. You referred to the PISA results at the top of the show. That's sort of like the Olympics of school education. And on that measure, Australia has been declining in its results for 2 decades at the steepest and most consistent rate in the world, other than only one other country, and that's Finland, a country we've modelled, by the way, much of what we've focused on in our classrooms. At the end of the day, there's 2 things we can do that it would explain why the school system is not doing as well as it could, and that's because that always comes down to 2 things. It's the quality of the teaching and the quantity of the teaching available. On both counts, we've let down students in Australia.
So expand on what you mean by that. Obviously, teacher quality has been something that is the subject of government policy, particularly in the last government. They put a lot of emphasis on improving teacher quality. But what do you mean by teacher quantity?
Yeah, so the issue here is that while Australian teachers work relatively long hours, they spend comparatively little of that time actually teaching. We have them spending significant amounts of time on administration and tasks that really are not related to the teaching and learning of students. If we're going to maximise students' learning, we've got to maximise the time that teachers spend teaching. And on the quality front, unfortunately, we've been inspired by all the educational fads from around the world, rather than focusing on the practices known for success. And we've had examples of that here in Australia, where schools that are following the very best methods are achieving outstanding results. We just need to scale that up and ensure that we don't allow more teachers, particularly those that are graduating, to receive substandard training.
Glenn, $662 billion has been spent on schools since NAPLAN testing commenced, and in the last year, we spent a record sum for a single year. We're not really getting value for money here. What do we have to do in terms of non-dollar investments to be able to see those results turn around quickly?
Well, as you say, we have spent an eye-watering sum on education in Australia. It could not be said that Australian governments have not prioritised resources into the system. Compared to the rest of the world, we have some of the highest funding and fastest growing funding for our schools. But what we've lacked is solid investments of that funding. To this day, while we measure significantly the amount of money that goes into the system, there is not a single piece of data, and I repeat, not a single piece of data that tells us how money is used in schools. And the practical consequence there is that if you're a school leader trying to make good decisions with your finances, there is nowhere to go, a best practice guide about making smart investments. That puts a lot of pressure on schools and on principals to really be working this out as they go. And we deserve better than that from school systems to help them make better investments.
So that's really interesting. It's not possible, for instance, for a struggling school to look at the budgets and the way money has been spent and programs pursued in a top school and try and model it in their own environment.
Exactly right. We ask schools to really work this out themselves rather than give them good guidance. And while we know that there's evidence-based practices out there, many schools and teachers won't have that ready at hand. We've got to do a much better job of mobilising good data and good evidence so schools can make better decisions. It's not because they don't want to. Teachers are so motivated for the welfare of students, and principals work so hard to ensure their schools are as successful as they can be. Unfortunately, the systems have really failed to give them those tools for success.
That is a really interesting and useful insight. Glenn Fahey, thank you very much for your help tonight.